Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his brow as he checked the fuel gauge of his exploration rover. The red warning light blinked angrily at him, confirming what he already knew. He was running on fumes, stranded on an alien world that the colonization charts had labeled as Kepler 4422c, but which the locals apparently called something that sounded like singing. The human survey team had been mapping this sector for 3 months, cataloging resources and potential settlement sites. Marcus had volunteered for the long-range scouting mission, eager to explore the mysterious forest regions that orbital scans suggested were rich with unique mineral deposits. Now, as dark clouds gathered overhead and his vehicle sputtered to a halt, he was beginning to regret that enthusiasm. He stepped out of the rover and surveyed his surroundings. The forest was unlike anything in Earth's databases. Trees stretched impossibly tall, their crystalline bark catching and refracting the fading sunlight into rainbow patterns. The air hummed with an energy that made his skin tingle, and strange melodious sounds drifted from deeper in the woods. It was beautiful, but beauty wouldn't get him back to base camp. Marcus activated his emergency beacon and checked his supplies. Water for 3 days, food for 5 if he rationed carefully. The storm clouds above were building rapidly, and he could smell rain in the air. His training kicked in as he began searching for shelter. That was when he saw her. She emerged from behind one of the crystal trees like a ghost materializing from moonlight. At first, Marcus thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. The figure was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin had a pale, almost translucent quality that seemed to glow softly in the dim forest light. Her hair fell in waves of silver white to her shoulders, and her eyes were large and luminous, colored like deep violet amethyst. She was tall, nearly matching his 6-foot frame, and moved with a grace that made it seem like her feet barely touched the ground. Her clothing appeared to be woven from the same crystal fibers as the trees around them, flowing and shifting with each movement. Marcus froze, his hand instinctively moving to the pulse pistol at his belt. But the alien made no aggressive moves. Instead, she tilted her head in what seemed like curiosity and spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "You are the one who fell from the sky metal," she said. And Marcus was shocked to realize he could understand her. The words weren't quite right, but somehow the meaning came through clearly. "You speak English?" he asked, then immediately felt foolish. Of course she didn't speak English. Something else was happening here. She smiled, and the expression transformed her ethereal features into something almost human. "I speak as the forest speaks. Your mind hears what it needs to hear." She gestured to a small pendant hanging around her neck, which pulsed with the same soft light as her skin. The Harmony Stone allows understanding between different songs of life. A rumble of thunder overhead reminded Marcus of his immediate situation. "I'm stranded," he said. "My vehicle ran out of fuel. Do you know of any shelter nearby?" The alien girl studied him for a long moment, her violet eyes seeming to look through him rather than at him. "The great rains come," she said finally. "They will last for many cycles. Your metal shell would be swept away by the water rivers that form." As if summoned by her words, the first drops of rain began to fall. But these weren't ordinary raindrops. Each one sparkled with an inner light, and where they touched the crystal trees, the bark sang with musical tones. Within seconds, the gentle drops became a deluge. "Come," the alien girl said, beckoning him toward a cluster of larger trees. "The forest provides." Marcus hesitated for only a moment before following her. The rain was intensifying rapidly, and he could already see streams of glowing water beginning to form channels between the trees. His rover would indeed be swept away if he left it there, but his survival took precedence over equipment. She led him to what appeared to be a solid wall of crystal bark, but as they approached, she placed her hand against the surface and sang a short, melodic phrase. The bark shimmered and parted, revealing a hollow space within the enormous tree. "Sacred grove," she explained as they stepped inside. "The first-growth trees are hollow within, meant for sheltering life during the great rains." The interior was larger than Marcus had expected, easily 15 feet across and nearly as tall. The walls glowed with the same gentle radiance as the girl's skin, providing enough light to see clearly. The floor was covered with what felt like moss but looked like tiny crystal formations, soft beneath his feet. "This is incredible," Marcus breathed, looking around in wonder. "How do you know about this place?" "I am keeper of this grove," she replied, settling gracefully onto the moss-like floor. "My name translates roughly to Singer of Deep Waters in your language understanding. You may call me Lyra, as that is a sound pattern your mouth can make." Marcus sat across from her, still marveling at their shelter. "I'm Marcus. I'm part of a survey team from—" He paused, realizing he didn't know how to explain humanity or Earth to her. "From far away. We're exploring this region." Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "Yes, the metal flyers have been seen. Some of my people are fearful, but the deep forest whispered that you would come eventually. You are the first I have met face to face." The rain outside had become a true torrent, and Marcus could hear water rushing past their tree refuge. Through the translucent walls, he could see the forest transforming. Streams became rivers, and rivers became torrents of glowing water that flowed between the trees like liquid starlight. "How long do these storms usually last?" he asked. 7 to 10 cycles of light and dark," Lyra replied, "sometimes longer if the sky rivers are particularly full." Marcus did quick math. 7 to 10 days, possibly more. His emergency beacon would have reached base camp by now, but no rescue mission would launch in this weather. Even if they tried, the atmospheric disturbance would make landing impossible. "I have supplies for about 5 days," he said, more to himself than to her. Lyra's expression grew concerned. "The forest provides sustenance, but your body song is different from ours. I do not know if the fruits and waters that nourish my people would nourish you." They sat in contemplative silence for a while, listening to the storm rage outside. The crystal walls filtered the sound into something almost musical, and Marcus found it oddly soothing despite their predicament. "Tell me about your people," Lyra said eventually. "Your body is similar to ours in shape, but your energy signature is unlike anything in our memory songs." Marcus spent the next hour explaining humanity as best he could. He told her about Earth, about the great ships that carried people between stars, about the colonies and the endless human drive to explore and discover. Lyra listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that showed a keen intelligence. "Your people sound very active," she said finally. "Always moving, always seeking new places. We are more rooted. We sing with the forest and live in harmony with its rhythms." "What about you specifically?" Marcus asked. "What does it mean to be a keeper?" Lyra's glow seemed to dim slightly. "Keepers maintain the sacred groves and preserve the memory songs of the deep forest. We serve as bridges between the forest mind and our people. It is—" She paused, searching for words. "A position of great honor and great loneliness." "Loneliness?" "Keepers do not take mates or bear young. We give our life song entirely to the forest. I have been keeper of this grove for 40 cycles of seasons. I have watched the trees grow and change, have sung with the wind and rain, but I have not shared the close harmony that bonded pairs sing together." Marcus felt a pang of sympathy. "That sounds like a heavy burden." "It is the way," Lyra said simply. But Marcus caught something in her tone that suggested resignation rather than acceptance. The storm outside intensified, and Marcus realized just how thoroughly they were trapped. The rain wasn't just heavy, it was transforming the landscape. Through the translucent walls, he could see that the water was rising, turning their tree into an island in a vast glowing lake. "Is this normal?" he asked, gesturing toward the flooded forest. "This is why the trees grew so tall and why they are hollow," Lyra explained. "During the great rains, the forest becomes a vast water garden. The rain carries minerals and nutrients from the sky streams, feeding the roots of all growing things. When it ends, the water will drain away through the deep channels, leaving the earth richer than before." Marcus marveled at the elegant adaptation. "It's like the whole ecosystem is designed around these floods." "The deep forest is old and wise," Lyra agreed. "It has learned to turn even the most destructive forces into sources of life and growth." As the day wore on, they continued to talk. Marcus shared stories of human ingenuity and exploration, while Lyra taught him about the forest's complex ecosystem and her people's harmonious way of life. Despite the vast differences in their backgrounds, Marcus found himself drawn to her gentle wisdom and the sadness that seemed to lurk behind her luminous eyes. Evening came. Though it was hard to tell with the storm blocking most of the light, the interior of the tree had grown warmer as their body heat filled the space, and Marcus realized he was remarkably comfortable considering the circumstances. "Are you tired?" Lyra asked, noticing his occasional yawns. "A bit. It's been a long day and the adrenaline is wearing off." She gestured to a section of the moss floor that seemed particularly thick. "Rest there. The heart moss will adjust to your body's needs and help you sleep deeply." Marcus settled onto the indicated spot and was amazed to feel the moss conform to his shape, providing perfect support and surprising warmth. "This is incredible. How does it work?" "The heart moss shares energy with living beings," Lyra explained, settling onto her own sleeping area. "It senses your body's rhythm and provides what you need for healing rest." As Marcus drifted towards sleep, he found himself thinking about the strange turn his mission had taken. He'd come to catalog resources and terrain features, but instead, he'd discovered something far more valuable: evidence of a truly alien intelligence that had achieved something humanity still struggled with: perfect harmony with their environment. And then there was Lyra herself. Even setting aside her obviously non-human nature, there was something about her that fascinated him. Maybe it was the quiet sadness beneath her serene exterior, or the way she spoke of her forest with such deep love and understanding. Whatever it was, Marcus found himself glad to be stranded with her, storm or no storm. The last thing he heard before sleep claimed him was Lyra's voice, soft and musical, singing what sounded like a lullaby in her own language. The words were incomprehensible, but the emotion was universal, a song of peace, protection, and something that might have been longing. Marcus woke to the sound of Lyra singing. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, weaving through octaves that human voices couldn't reach, and it seemed to make the very walls of their tree shelter resonate in harmony. He lay still for a moment, eyes closed, letting the music wash over him. When the song ended, he opened his eyes to find Lyra watching him with those luminous violet eyes. The storm still raged outside, but somehow the tree felt even more secure than it had the night before. "Did you rest well?" she asked. "Better than I have in months," Marcus admitted, sitting up and stretching. The heart moss had done exactly what she'd promised, leaving him feeling completely refreshed despite sleeping on what amounted to a forest floor. "The heart moss shared dreams with you," Lyra observed. "I could feel the echo of your sleep visions through the tree's root network." Marcus felt a momentary concern about privacy, but Lyra's expression was reassuring. "Could you see my dreams?" "Not see, but sense the emotional currents. You dream of vast spaces and distant lights. Your spirit yearns for horizons beyond horizons." She paused, tilting her head thoughtfully. But there was sadness, too, a sense of searching for something you have not yet found. The observation hit closer to home than Marcus was comfortable with. He'd spent years exploring new worlds, always moving on to the next mission, the next discovery. He'd told himself it was about advancing human knowledge, but lately he'd begun to wonder if he was just running from something. "What about you?" he asked, deflecting. "What do you dream of?" Lyra's glow dimmed slightly. "Keepers rarely dream. Our sleep is spent in communion with the forest mind, sharing in the vast, slow thoughts of the deep forest. But last night," she hesitated. "Last night, I dreamed of music I had never heard before. Songs that spoke of journey and discovery rather than roots and staying." They shared a moment of comfortable silence before Marcus realized he was getting hungry. He reached for his pack and pulled out a nutrition bar, then paused. "Is it safe for you to be around human food? I don't want to accidentally poison you or anything." Lyra laughed, a sound like silver bells in the wind. "The Harmony Stone protects against such incompatibilities, but I am curious about this food that travels with you." Marcus broke the bar in half and offered her a piece. She examined it carefully before taking a small bite. Her expression was neutral for a moment, then shifted to mild surprise. "It is very dense with energy," she said, "like eating concentrated sunlight. How do your people create such things?" "We process various nutrients and compress them into portable forms," Marcus explained. "They're not particularly tasty, but they keep you alive in situations like this." Lyra nodded thoughtfully and took another small bite. "Your people think much about survival? Even your food is designed for journeys and hardship." As the morning progressed, Marcus found himself learning more about Lyra's people and their remarkable civilization. The HFY, as they called themselves, had achieved a level of integration with their environment that put human terraforming efforts to shame. Their cities were grown rather than built, shaped from living crystal formations that filtered air, produced light, and recycled waste into nutrients for the forest. "We learned long ago that fighting against nature leads only to destruction," Lyra explained as she showed him images through her Harmony Stone. The pendant projected soft holograms of crystal spires that twisted organically toward the sky, bridges that pulsed with flowing energy, and gardens that seemed to float in midair. "It's beautiful," Marcus said genuinely. "But how do you handle things like disease, or natural disasters, or conflicts with other species?" "The deep forest teaches that all things exist in balance. Disease comes when harmony is broken, and the cure is to restore the balance. Natural events are part of the greater song. We learn to flow with them rather than resist. As for other species," she paused, looking directly at him, "we had no contact with others until your people arrived." "Are your people afraid of us?" Marcus asked. "Some are," Lyra admitted. "The harmony of your species is very different from ours. You burn bright and fast, like stars that consume their fuel quickly. It makes some of my people nervous." "And you?" Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her fingers absently touching her Harmony Stone. "I find your burning fascinating. In all my years as keeper, I have sung the same songs, tended the same groves, maintained the same traditions. Your people's music speaks of change and growth and possibilities I have never imagined." The storm outside showed no signs of letting up. If anything, it seemed to be growing stronger. Marcus could see that the water level around their tree had risen even higher, and the current was swift enough to carry debris past their shelter at alarming speeds. "This is definitely more than a normal storm," he observed. Lyra sang a brief questioning melody, and the tree itself seemed to respond with harmonics that she interpreted. "The deep forest says this is a once-in-many-generations storm. The sky rivers have shifted their course, bringing waters that should have fallen in the distant mountains. How long could it last? 20 cycles, perhaps more." Lyra's expression was troubled. I have enough food for myself, but your energy-dense provisions will not last so long. Marcus did the math and didn't like the result. Even rationing carefully, he had maybe 8 days of food, and that was if he supplemented with whatever local vegetation might be safe for human consumption. The thought of being trapped for nearly 3 weeks was daunting. There might be another way, Lyra said quietly, and something in her tone made Marcus look at her sharply. What do you mean? She was quiet for so long that Marcus began to think she wouldn't answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The deep forest has ways of sustaining life during times of great need, but the price is significant. What kind of price? Lyra stood and moved to the wall of their shelter, placing her hand against the glowing surface. The tree responded with a complex harmony that spoke of deep roots and ancient wisdom. To be sustained by the forest's life force, one must become part of its song. It is not a joining that can be easily undone. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. Are you saying I'd have to become like you? Permanently? Not like me exactly. The forest adapts its gifts to each individual's nature. But yes, you would be changed. Your life song would become entwined with the deep forest's eternal harmony. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. To accept such a transformation would mean never returning to human space, never seeing Earth again, never continuing his career as an explorer. It would mean abandoning everything he'd known and worked for. There has to be another option, he said. Perhaps, Lyra agreed, but she didn't sound convinced. We will wait and see what the storm brings. But Marcus, she turned to face him, and her violet eyes seemed to glow brighter than usual. If the choice comes to that, I want you to know that I would gladly help you make the transition. The forest has already begun to resonate with your presence. It would not be difficult to weave your song into ours. Something in her tone suggested there was more to this offer than simple survival. Lyra, why would you do that for me? You barely know me. She was quiet again, and Marcus could see an internal struggle playing out across her ethereal features. Finally, she spoke in a voice so soft he had to strain to hear it. For 40 cycles of seasons, I have been alone in this grove. I have sung with the trees and communed with the wind, but I have never shared true harmony with another consciousness. When you arrived yesterday, something changed in the forest song. The deep forest itself began to sing differently, as if your presence had added a new instrument to an ancient orchestra. Marcus felt his breath catch. What are you saying? I am saying that in less than 2 days you have brought more music into my existence than I have known in 4 decades of solitude. Her glow intensified, and Marcus could see her hands trembling. I am saying that the thought of you leaving when this storm ends fills me with a silence deeper than any I have ever known. The admission hung in the air between them like a physical presence. Marcus stared at her, seeing not just an alien being, but a person who had spent decades in devoted isolation and was now facing the possibility of connection for the first time in her adult life. Lyra, he began, but she held up a hand to stop him. I know it is selfish, she said. Your people will expect you to return. You have your own life, your own purposes. I should not ask you to give up your chosen path for the sake of an isolated keeper's loneliness. You're not asking, Marcus pointed out. You're offering to help save my life, even if it means changing me forever. Yes, but my motives are not pure. Part of me hopes that you will choose to stay, even without the storm forcing your hand. She looked directly at him, and Marcus could see tears glistening in her luminous eyes. I have never felt connection like this, Marcus. The harmony we create together is unlike anything in the memory songs of my people. Marcus felt his worldview shifting like tectonic plates. 3 days ago, he'd been a human explorer on a routine mapping mission. Now he was face to face with a choice that could redefine his entire existence. And the most unsettling part was that the idea of staying wasn't entirely unwelcome. "What would it mean exactly?" he asked. "If I chose to accept the forest's gift?" Hope flickered across Lyra's features. "Your body would adapt to draw sustenance from the forest's energy as mine does. You would gain the ability to communicate with the plant life and feel the deeper currents of life that flow through all growing things. Your lifespan would extend to match the slow time of the trees. And the cost. You would no longer be entirely human. The change would make it impossible for you to survive away from the forest for extended periods. This world would become your home forever." Marcus closed his eyes and tried to process the magnitude of such a decision. To stay would mean joining a civilization based on principles that humanity was only beginning to understand. True sustainability, perfect harmony with the environment, and a connection to life itself that went deeper than anything humans had achieved. It would also mean staying with Lyra, whose loneliness called to something deep in his own spirit. In their brief time together, she had shown him glimpses of a way of existence that made his years of restless exploration seem shallow by comparison. But it would mean giving up everything he had been. The storm raged on outside, and Marcus realized that whether he wanted it or not, this choice was coming. The question wasn't whether the storm would force his hand, but whether he would wait for desperation to make the decision for him, or have the courage to choose his own path while he still could. "How long do we have before the decision becomes urgent?" he asked. "Perhaps 5 or 6 days," Lyra replied. "After that, your energy reserves will be too low for the transformation to succeed safely." 5 or 6 days to choose between everything he had been and everything he might become. Marcus looked at Lyra, seeing the hope and fear warring in her expression, and realized that his choice would determine not just his own fate, but hers as well. The weight of that responsibility was almost crushing, but beneath it was something else, a growing certainty that whatever choice he made, it would change both of their lives forever. The 4th day dawned with no change in the storm's intensity. Marcus had been carefully rationing his food supplies, but even so, he could feel his energy beginning to flag. More concerning was the way Lyra watched him with growing worry, her luminous eyes tracking every sign of his declining strength. They had spent the previous day in long conversations about their respective worlds, sharing stories and philosophies that revealed how different yet compatible their species could be. Marcus had told her about human achievements, cities that reached toward the stars, ships that crossed the void between worlds, and the unquenchable human drive to push beyond every boundary. In return, Lyra had shared the deeper wisdom of her people, their understanding of life's interconnectedness, and the patient strength that came from being rooted in eternal principles. But beneath all their talk lay the unspoken urgency of his approaching decision. The emergency beacon would have reached base camp by now, Marcus said, more to break the contemplative silence than because he expected any response. "They'll be planning a rescue operation." "Can they reach you in this storm?" Lyra asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Marcus shook his head. "Not until it clears. The atmospheric disturbance would make landing impossible, and even if they tried, the flooding would prevent them from reaching this area." He paused, watching the torrents of glowing water that continued to flow past their tree refuge. "No, I'm on my own until this weather breaks." Lyra's glow dimmed with concern. "You have perhaps 2 days of strength remaining." "I know." Marcus had been doing his own calculations, and they weren't encouraging. "After that, even if I wanted to accept your forest's gift, I might be too weak for the transformation to succeed." They sat in troubled silence for a while, both contemplating the narrowing window of choice. Finally, Lyra spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. When I spoke of helping you transform, of weaving your song into the forest's harmony, I was not offering merely as a keeper bound by duty. He looked at her questioningly, and she continued, her words coming in a rush as if she'd been holding them back for too long. In all my years of solitude, I have told myself that duty was enough, that serving the deep forest was fulfillment enough for any life. But these past few days with you have shown me what I have been missing. Your presence has awakened something in me that I thought was lost forever, the desire to share my existence with another being. Marcus felt his heart race. Lyra, please, let me finish, she said, holding up a trembling hand. If you choose to accept the forest's gift, it would not be just to save your life. It would be because I am asking you to stay with me, to become my companion in this grove, to share the harmony that we have discovered together. The admission hung between them like a bridge spanning two worlds. Marcus could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the fear that he would reject not just the transformation, but her as well. You're asking me to give up everything I've ever known, he said quietly. Yes, she admitted without hesitation. I am asking you to choose a completely different life, one centered around roots instead of horizons. I know it is unfair, but I cannot bear the thought of returning to solitude after experiencing true companionship. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to think clearly, despite the emotional turmoil her words had triggered. The choice she was offering was both a gift and a burden, the chance to join a remarkable civilization and share his life with an extraordinary being, but at the cost of everything that had defined him until now. What if there was another way? He said suddenly, opening his eyes to find her watching him intently. What do you mean? Marcus stood and began pacing the confines of their shelter, his mind racing with possibilities. You said your people have had no contact with other species until humans arrived. That means you've never considered the advantages of cultural exchange, of learning from other ways of life. Lyra tilted her head in confusion. I do not understand. Think about it, Marcus said, his excitement growing as the idea took shape. Your people have achieved perfect harmony with your environment, but you've also become static. You maintain the same traditions, sing the same songs, follow the same patterns for generation after generation. This is the way of wisdom, Lyra said carefully. Change can disrupt harmony. But controlled change can create new harmonies, Marcus countered. What if instead of asking me to abandon my nature entirely, we found a way to blend our approaches? What if we could create something new that combined the best of both our peoples? He could see her struggling to grasp the concept. How could such a thing be possible? Marcus pulled out his emergency communicator and examined its power cells. This storm can't last forever. When it ends, my people will come looking for me. But what if instead of leaving with them, I stayed to serve as a bridge between our species? You would still need to be sustained by the forest, Lyra pointed out. Maybe, Marcus said, but what if the transformation didn't have to be permanent? What if we could find a way for me to draw life from the forest while maintaining enough of my human nature to travel between worlds? Lyra's eyes widened as she began to understand his proposal. You wish to become a translator between our peoples. More than that, Marcus said, his vision expanding. I want to become proof that different species can work together without one having to abandon what makes them unique. Your people could learn from human innovation and adaptability, while we could learn from your wisdom about living in harmony with nature. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. They were warm and seemed to pulse with the same gentle energy that lit their shelter. Lyra, what if we could create a new kind of partnership? One where I could spend part of my time here, learning from your people and sharing my knowledge, and part of my time traveling between worlds, building bridges between species? The forest transformation cannot be partially done. she said. But Marcus could hear hope creeping into her voice. Once changed, you would be bound to this world. Then maybe we need to find a different kind of change, Marcus replied. What if instead of transforming me to match your world, we found a way to create a shared space where both our natures could exist? Lyra was quiet for a long moment, her violet eyes distant as she communed with forces Marcus couldn't sense. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of wonder. The deep forest says this is possible. The harmony stone that allows understanding between species could be modified, enhanced, to create a deeper connection. Instead of changing your essential nature, it could create a bridge that allows you to draw life from multiple sources, your own human vitality, supplemented by the forest's energy when you are here. Marcus felt a surge of excitement. What would that mean practically? You could remain fundamentally human, but when you wear an enhanced harmony stone, you could survive indefinitely in our environment. The forest would sustain you, but you would not be forever bound to it. You could travel between worlds, carry knowledge back and forth, build the bridges you spoke of. And you? Marcus asked. Would such an arrangement satisfy your desire for companionship? Lyra's glow intensified, and for the first time since he'd met her, her smile held no trace of sadness. It would mean sharing your presence when you are here, knowing that you choose to return because you wish to, not because you have no other option. It would mean being part of building something new instead of simply maintaining something ancient. The more they discussed the idea, the more feasible it seemed. An enhanced harmony stone could serve as both translator and life support system, allowing Marcus to function in either environment. He could return to human space to report his discoveries, recruit others for cultural exchange programs, and establish formal diplomatic contact. But he could also spend extended periods in the crystal forests, learning from Lyra's people and exploring possibilities that neither species had imagined alone. There's just one problem, Marcus said as they refined their plans. Creating such an enhancement would require cooperation from both our peoples. I can't do it alone, and neither can you. Then we must convince them, Lyra said with a determination that surprised him. When your people come for you, I will speak with them. I will show them what we have discovered together and ask for their help in making it permanent. That's assuming they can even find us after the storm, Marcus pointed out. Lyra smiled mysteriously and sang a brief melody. The harmony stone around her neck pulsed, and suddenly the walls of their shelter became fully transparent. Through the crystal-clear surface, Marcus could see the extent of the flooding and the magnificent bioluminescent display the forest had created in response to the storm. Every tree glowed like a beacon, their light reflecting off the flowing water to create patterns of incredible beauty. The entire flooded forest had become a vast communication network, pulsing with information and energy. The deep forest has been listening to your emergency beacon, Lyra explained. It has learned the signal pattern and amplified it. When your people come looking, they will find not just your small transmitter, but the entire forest calling to them. Marcus stared in amazement at the light show surrounding them. Your trees are boosting my emergency signal? More than that. The deep forest has been learning about human technology through your equipment. It understands now that your people navigate by reading energy patterns. It is creating patterns that will guide them directly to us. The ingenuity of the solution took Marcus's breath away. Here was proof of what became possible when different approaches to problem-solving were combined. Human technology providing the initial signal, alien intelligence amplifying and directing it, and natural systems serving as the communication medium. 2 days later, the storm finally began to break. As the rain lessened and the floodwaters started to recede, Marcus and Lyra worked together to prepare for what would be the most important negotiation in either species' history. Using Marcus's communicator and Lyra's harmony stone, they began transmitting a message that would reach the human rescue team and explain what they had discovered. "This is Marcus Chen," he spoke into the device while Lyra held her pendant close to the transmitter. "I am alive and well, sheltered by a member of the indigenous species. We have made a remarkable discovery about the possibility of interspecies cooperation, and I request permission to establish formal first contact protocols." The response came faster than expected. "Marcus, this is Commander Sarah Walsh. We have your location locked from the enhanced signal. Are you being held against your will?" Marcus looked at Lyra and smiled. "Quite the opposite, Commander. I'm being offered an opportunity to serve as humanity's first interspecies liaison, but I'll need support from the xenobiology team to make it work." As they waited for the rescue team to arrive, Marcus and Lyra made their final preparations. The enhanced Harmony Stone would require genetic material from both of them, as well as technological components from human equipment and biological material from the deep forest. It would be a true collaboration, creating something that neither species could have achieved alone. "Are you certain about this choice?" Lyra asked, as they heard the distant sound of approaching aircraft. Marcus took her hand and looked around at the crystal trees that had sheltered them, the glowing waters that were slowly returning to normal channels, and the alien woman who had offered to share her world with him. "I've spent my whole career exploring new worlds," he said, "but I've never found anything as amazing as what we've discovered together. I'm not giving up exploration, Lyra. I'm just expanding my definition of what there is to explore." When the rescue team landed, they found not a stranded human in need of rescue, but two beings working together to draft the framework for the first formal alliance between humanity and an alien civilization. The storm that had threatened to trap them together had instead freed them to create something neither could have imagined alone. The enhanced Harmony Stone worked exactly as planned, allowing Marcus to serve as a bridge between worlds while maintaining his essential humanity. But more importantly, it became the foundation for a new kind of relationship between species, one built on mutual respect, shared knowledge, and the understanding that some of the most beautiful harmonies come from combining different voices. In the years that followed, the crystal forests of Kepler 442c became the site of humanity's most successful colonial experiment, not as conquerors or terraformers, but as partners in creating a truly interspecies civilization. And at the heart of it all was a former keeper who had chosen to expand her definition of harmony, and a human explorer who had learned that sometimes the greatest discoveries come not from traveling to new worlds, but from choosing to truly see the one where you find yourself.